Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in today. You know what's really great when you're making music or designing a patch? The feeling that you can do almost anything you can think of with the tools at hand, while at the same time not being overwhelmed by that freedom. Today, I want to talk to you about this amazing instrument that I have before me, the Sequential Pro 3, and how it has made me feel that way over and over and over again over the couple of weeks that I've been playing around with it. I just want to start saying out that there is no doubt that Dave Smith was one of the greatest minds that ever graced the world of synthesizers. And the Pro 3 over here is a beautiful display of all of that talent along with the years of experience condensed into this fever dream of a synth. Though my official long-term review will be made long after I'm done drooling over the Pro 3 a few months from now, I do feel that I need to go on the record and say that this synth has made me feel more in tune with synthesizers and sound design than I have been in a long while. And that is largely due to it being insanely capable while being just absurdly easy to use. For example, assigning modulation routings is as simple as clicking the source button over here, clicking your desired source, for example, LFO1 over here, the frequency, and then clicking the destination button and turning the knob where you want that destination to go. So let's see the cutoff. That's pretty typical. Then you just dial in the amount, and voila! That's the modulation matrix for dummies. The second thing that makes the Pro 3 extremely easy to navigate without even memorizing the manual or the interface is the redundancy of many of the knobs and buttons. Normally on a synth this complex, if you want to access a parameter on a synth, you have to go to a specific knob or button combo that'll take you there. And of course, you can always put on your bathing suit and go menu diving. The problem with that very common setup is that you end up wasting loads of time just trying to remember where that specific button or menu is, and it can be extremely frustrating at times. Even on something as intuitive as the Deluge, for example, I've had to go over and over into the manual or to a tutorial if there's a new firmware update or something, just so I can remember how to set up the external audio source for a looper. Here, you often get to the same menu via different routes or knobs, and that makes it both a lot easier to access those parameters when you get lost, as well as giving you a great foundation to remember things in the long run. Take the distortion and feedback, for example. I can access that menu either by turning the distortion knob or the feedback knob. So for example, if I go into distortion, I'm in this distortion menu over here, right? Now, if I'm playing something else, I'm in the effects menu right now. If I grab the feedback amount, then I'm back into that same menu. So in these two knobs, I'm accessing that same menu. And also, thanks to this wonderfully well laid out screen and combination of buttons and knobs, I always feel like I have access to everything, everywhere, all at once. For example, let's say I want to adjust the filter envelope, right? So you have the dedicated knobs over here, and if I start tweaking them, I get this very lovely envelope shape right here on the screen. I always love it when synths show you exactly what your envelope looks like. And I can tweak this with the dedicated knobs, or I can go over here and have a more hands-on approach regarding the screen. So normally, if I'm tweaking something, and for example, I have my left hand over here, and I want to see how this will behave, I tend to look over here at the dedicated knobs. But I could also, for example, if I'm playing with my right hand, have access to those same parameters while using this different screen. So basically you have redundancy of your controls, and that makes it so much more ergonomic, comfortable, and fast, because you have different ways that you don't have to do like a little stretch to get to those parameters when you're playing over here. This abundance of controls and redundancy of the knobs is a real lifesaver, especially, for example, in a live jamming situation where sometimes you can get in your way trying to reach things if your hands are in weird positions. And what I really love about this is that it's thought out for somebody who's actually playing this and not just programming it. And I think that's what made Dave Smith and his instruments so unique, is that he had a very clear understanding of what makes an instrument fun and playable. Of course, the sound is always a major factor, but also the ability to play and tweak it intuitively and with as little friction as possible is what makes the overall experience enjoyable in the end. And that takes me to this thing's sequencer. To me, the sequencer on the Pro 3 is almost worth the price of admission of the whole device. I'll be painfully honest here. I'm a very, very lazy person. Most of the time, I find it kind of a hassle to learn how to use yet another limited built-in sequencer on a new synth. Best example I can give you is the Subsequent 37 sequencer. I'm sure many of you out there will defend it, and let's be honest, the Sub 37 is a legendary synth. Its sequencer, however, is not. There are a few notable exceptions, of course, like the Polybrute, but in general, I tend to skip over sequencers on synths as they're usually not as powerful or as fun as something like an Electron box or a tracker. So I usually end up sequencing my synths from something like the Mate or the Polyan Tracker or the Octatrack instead. The sequencer on the Pro 3 is a completely different story, and I think that Sequential might actually be losing money by not making a little MIDI controller based on this same concept. In the manual's words, they wanted to make a sequencer similar to what you can have on a modular rig, where each step not only sequences notes, but also parameters like cutoff, resonance, shape mod, and other destinations which you can actually assign here. Once again, I thought that this might be one of those overly complicated things where you can get a massive headache just trying to wrap your head around its functions, but no, not this one. The same simplicity that they applied to the synthesizer functions was applied to the sequencer, making it one of the fastest, funnest, and easiest ways to spice up your sounds on the Pro 3. You get 16 tracks, or lanes. The first ones being assigned to notes, velocity, cutoff, ratchet, the usual. And the rest are all step-based modulation that you can assign by just clicking record and a knob. For example, let's record a quick sequence here. I'm in a basic program, and let's just... Okay, so how does that sound? It's a bit fast. Okay, let's calm down there, buddy. Yeah, there we go. Let's make it sound a bit more agreeable. That's just one oscillator, by the way. And I love this thing. It's very easy to get carried away with this. Okay, I was showing the sequencer, right? Okay, so we have the sequencer, a few basic notes. Okay, but how about we make this interesting and use these assignable tracks? So instead of having to route this in a weird button combination or anything, you just simply press record, let's play, let's record, and let's automate the cutoff. That's it. That's it. And you can still change this with the value knob in real time, automated style, or you can just go into the steps and choose which one you want and start altering the values. And that makes it really powerful. And this is something that I've missed on other sequencers, like for example the KeyStep Pro, is a really nice and detailed visual way to see your steps and to modify them. And I really think that this combination of physical buttons with this LED screen and all of these knobs, this is just genius. So let's see what we did. Okay, so let's tweak the resonance. And the drive. You know how lots of synths you think, man, I wish I could do this? And I think Nick Bat also said this about the Pro 3. Usually on this synth, when you think, man, I wish I could do X, you usually can. And for example, right now, I accidentally started tweaking or automating the oscillator level when what I wanted to do was the drive level. So I thought to myself, wait a minute, instead of erasing this, can I just go to track select and switch this by just touching the knob? And yes, turns out I can stay on the same track, number 6, and I can just assign whatever I want by just touching the knob. I mean, if that's not genius, I really don't know what is. There's one way in particular that I really enjoy using the sequencer's step modulation, and that is with the arpeggiator. So starting off with a basic patch. Okay, that's extremely basic, just one oscillator. I'm gonna add a second and a third. change the shape over here. Something a bit pluckier. Okay, so that's kind of sounding a little... That's with no effects, right? And now we're just going to add a little bit of delay, a bucket brigade, and one of my personal favorites, the super plate. We're going to slow it down a bit. Okay, so that's our arpeggiator, right? That sounded pretty cool, huh? But that doesn't have that much movement yet. Now is where the genius of the sequencer comes in. So I'm not going to straight up make a sequence, but I'm going to use it with the arpeggiator. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to set the sequencer mode to trigger. Arpeggiator on and hold. So now that's the sound. Take it down a notch. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to track select, and I'm going to go for the cutoff, for example. And this is my track for modulating the cutoff. Sorry about that. And this is my track for modulating the cutoff. So now I can go step by step, and I'm going to go, okay, so step 1, step 2. So now, and you can see how the sequence starts becoming a little bit more alive. So I'm going to go modify a few of these steps. That immediately gives it more movement. So now I'm going to track number 5. I want the resonance. And it's just that easy. I just touch the resonance and there we go. So we're going to go to step. And I believe, though, don't quote me on this because I could be mistaken, that these steps are increases or decreases in value relative to the knob position. I'm going to have to check that, but what's really cool about it is that now we have something that's moving and evolving. This thing is very powerful because in the track select I can go to any number of tracks and I could, for example, modify oscillator 2's shape mod. And now I have this whole different new dimension of movement that I can add on the 16 steps. Let's see how that sounds. So the cool thing about this is you start messing around with it and suddenly you're not just sound designing anymore. Now you're actually trying to make something that sounds cool and that has the beginnings of what might be an actual song. And for example, let's say that we're doing this, right? And now I want, for example, I start messing around with the release, right? And I think that that's a very cool automation. So I can just press record, and there we go. I don't even have to select the track now. It will automatically choose that one. And now I have track 7 on the release. Let's go one step further. Let's say, okay, now I want the frequency of LFO1 to also be automated, and there it is. It's very rare that you feel that you can do whatever you want with the synth and it'll just respond with, okay, let's go for it. What else could you need? And it got weird. Moving on. Having 16 lanes to automate, it's just crazy to me. I mean, like, it's just so much fun. And usually I tend to separate my time between sound design and music making. But in the Pro 3, I found this amazing synergy where these two worlds coexist perfectly well. You get what I've always asked for in the Deluge, which is a proper screen showing you just the essential information. I know I'm usually very optimistic and giddy when I get new gear, and I will have a better grip on things when the honeymoon phase has faded away, but I think I can confidently tell you here, the Pro 3 is my new favorite monosynth, and as a package, I think it's definitely one of the greatest synths that Dave Smith was kind enough to give this world. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Hope to see you soon.